welcome. You are watching QTV and you are watching This Morning. And no, as you can see, I'm not Jennifer Sonko and I'm not Ibrahima Sorim Balde either. But I am hosting the program today. And here, co-hosting with me, it feels almost like the weekend review. I have Mordun Burge. Mr. Burge, welcome to This Morning.
The weekend review light.
This is it, yes, weekend review light.
Cheers.
Thank you. And we also have our MD, we have Mr. Carr, Malik Carr, to do the newspaper. Mr. Carr, as ever, welcome.
Good morning. You have to excuse my sharpness today since I did not drink my morning tea.
Oh dear.
You know.
I think we'll have to break rules and bring tea.
Yeah, because I'm not fully awake, I can attest to that.
Well, let's hope the program will get you fully awake.
I hope so.
But we appreciate you coming.
Thank
you. And to our viewers, you're probably wondering what's on the menu. So let's go through it quickly. As usual, we have our African proverb, and I'll admit now I haven't a clue what it means, but I'll have a go at it when we get to it. Also, we'll have our newspaper review, for which we have our colleague Malik Carr here, and a case that's ongoing in the courts, the update on the PIU shooting. Those of you who remember, if you don't remember, we'll give you a quick update. 2 PIU officers were shot at around Sukuta traffic lights, shot and killed. And another, Ansi Jao, was wounded in that incident. The trial of the alleged shooter is ongoing, and there have been some interesting revelations in that one. Also, we have Green Gambia, and we speak to Almami Landing Tal, it says here. I wonder if that's correct. I think it's funding. And this is to do with keeping the Gambia green. And then also, we go finally, in our final segment, look at Tobacco Control Act and attempts to curb the spread and the use of tobacco products. So that's what we have on the program today. So I guess, as usual, shall we kick off with the African proverb? And I'll read it. As I said, I have no idea what it means, so I'll admit that now. It says, if a child learns the trail of a snake, he will also learn the wandering of the snake. Gentlemen, we are the 3 wise men, but today I'll be 2 wise men and 1 not so wise man. So I'll throw it to the other 2 wise men.
Well,
Mr. Carr,
my take is that naturally snakes are, known or purported to be cunning.
Yes.
They tend to do things, beneath. That's why you have this description of green snake in green grass, sort of. So if you train a child evil things, they will adapt to it and then use it. So my understanding is, whatever you train the child is what the child will turn out to be. So if you make a monster out of a child, then you end up having a monster. So be aware of the values that you instill into a young child, because those are the values that may be manifested. And in this instance, because snakes are involved, so they follow the trails of a snake. So that's why they call you that you are a snake if you're somebody that trails or do things. So that is the...
I like that, even though I said I did not.
That's a very interesting one.
So what's your take on it?
Well, my take on it, I was just focusing on these 2 words, trail and wandering. Trail, is it what I can see, the shape you make, for instance, in grass, what I can see, and wandering would be much deeper than that. Why does it do that? I begin to understand your inner nature, as it were, what is outwardly available to me visibly, the facade, and the underlying causes of the facade. So for me, this is my interpretation of this.
Okay. You are very deep in your philosophical thoughts. So I was operating on the surface.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you being Voltaire or being...
That's right. So, yeah. I mean, having lied and said I didn't understand it, my take on it is it's kind of similar to just kind of some of what both of you have said, but my take on it was about, teaching somebody certain habits, certain traits, certain things that, how you start them off in life is how they will proceed in life. So if they learn honesty and probity and those sorts of things, that is the trail that they will follow later on in life. And if they learn the opposite, then that is the trail that they would pursue later in life. So that was kind of my take on it, really. When
I think that's right, but the application of the word snake, that is
gives
where
it
the evil intent comes.
Yes.
So you have flipped it on the other side, the good values, that's fine. But if now we're talking about the snake,
bad habits.
so how do we depict, or what interpretation do we make of a snake? If you describe somebody, my friend,
because they could have just said, if you the trail of an animal, they could have just left it vague like that, but they chose snake. So I get
to emphasize the evil side of what you
instill. Because really never straight, isn't it?
Well,
the way they move, side to side, that slithering,
that's right.
Exactly. That makes them very dangerous.
That is the pawn that you use when you describe to people that maneuver and do those kind of
slither
things.
Like a snake,
very slimy kind of, so that. Those are how we interpret snakes, to be.
Yeah, good. I like that. So we'll go for a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll delve into the newspaper review. Join us after this break.
And Orange Money has just made money transfer easier. Now you can send money from Gambia to Senegal directly from your Q Money wallet. So what are you waiting for? Get your Q Money account now and start sending money to your friends and families through Orange Money in Senegal now. For more information, call our customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Q-Money e Orange Money joni weɓini nuldugol mbuɗi mi yetoma joni ida wawi nuldude mbuɗi iwra ko Gambia ɗo yaha Senegal e Q-Money wallet ma on eyyi ko honno wonɗa e fadde mi yetoma udduto Q-Money account ma on joni fuɗɗoɗa nuldude mbuɗi e teriɓe ma rewa ɗon ka Orange Money nder Senegal fi heɓugol hen ko laaɓi ida wawi noddude Q-Money customer care e 133 Q-Money suñu kalpe ɗum no yaadi e sartaji Q-Money.
Hello and welcome back, and I'm smiling there because in the break there we were just discussing the man who normally sits here, Ibrahim Asori Balde. He's in Turkey and he's enjoying experiencing snow for the first time. We'll see if we can put up a picture of him in the snow ahead of tomorrow's program. But welcome back, and I think because we started late, I think we should delve straight into the newspaper review and see what the papers are saying this morning. We had some interesting newspaper stories yesterday, and today is no different. I'll start with a point, and in the center of it, it says government allocates $100 million for Diamond Jubilee. We kind of discussed this yesterday, and we said we wanted to see what that had been allocated for, because it's very vague. If you see the descriptions and the comments that have gone on, people are just saying they thought it was just for the celebrations at McCarthy Square, but maybe it's more than that. And
well, if you look at McCarthy Square, the tents that were hired from Senegal, the previous night, I think they have a banqueting dinner.
Yeah, that's right.
The arrival of head of states, I don't know, but I would assume those are the major costs
where
that
the
would
cost
have
has
gone
gone.
into
Yes,
it.
that's right.
Yeah, but
because people were saying that they, should have decentralized it more and being, big celebrations around the country because it was the 60th. So, gentlemen, what's your take on this figure which keeps
it could have
rearing
been, I
its
guess,
head?
to make other communities feel part of it, because at 60 the conversation should be very reflective.
Yeah, sure.
We should look back at the journey and see what achievements and what the future holds. What are the impediments that we look ahead to, especially being a young democracy and having gone through different phases of our development. Now we are faced with several challenges.
Sure.
The coming into place of the Constitution, for instance, the building of institutions.
Sure.
These are things that we should be talking about, going ahead, and also reflecting about what happened with some of the previous leaders. Where are their shortcomings? We must not just be shouting on top of the mountain that they are perfect. Look at their imperfections then, so that we can learn going ahead. The future generation can be able to look at them in a very constructive way.
Sure.
So that we can look at the Jawara era for 30 years. What have they registered? What things have they achieved within that context? Then we move into the Jammeh era. What were the issues? What achievements, what impediments, how did we survive that? Now we start looking into the Barrow period and also going ahead as to what do we want to be into the future as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because just very briefly before I bring you in, Mr. Mboj, I mean, when in Sierra Leone we did the 50th anniversary, the Golden Jubilee, we had things like essay competitions, kind of reflective. What has been our journey? We had debates in the schools, in the colleges,
So
and also
educational,
abroad.
yeah.
So even amongst the diaspora, we organized, debates and essay competitions to get people to kind of think about, where have we, what's this journey been like? Where have we been and where are we going? And I would have loved to have seen something like that.
Definitely.
It might have been done, but I wasn't made aware of anything like that.
Certainly
So Mboj, what's your take?
The way you're discussing it there, I'm like, wow, independence becoming a bit like a yearly audit of our country, where we're going,
because,
something like that.
Yeah, because when you see, when people say, for example, the minute you post something that says Happy Independence Day, if there are 10 responses, 5 or 6 of them will be saying, what are you celebrating?
Yes.
Why are we celebrating? So it seems as every year we do get that debate. It's almost inevitable.
But this is 60
that it becomes,
years, so the auditing...
there's a significance
I
with these,
agree with you
with
in
these
that
decades.
terminology, but we have to introspectively look at it in that...
Absolutely. So that's really the important thing. But here they're saying 100 million. For me, is it true? Was it ever declared by government? Do we know for certain it is confirmed?
I think Ismaila Cisse, that's why they've got his picture next to the story, that he confirmed that it was 100 million.
That's it.
Let's see the breakdown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point. If there are certain doubts or questions, just give us a breakdown. We spend it in A, B, C, and D. That's really public information in many ways. And that's how you build trust as well. Most of these questions arise because we distrust public officials. Isn't it? Really?
Yeah, but I tend to agree with Ade. For me, the cost can be justified if all these educational things have been inbuilt. We looked at independence introspectively and inspect it in a way that, we will gain something out of it going forward, so that we would have looked at that period when we gained independence, what were our expectations, because there is this joking joke that goes about that there was this lady that came at one point during the Jawara era because she preferred post-independence. He was asking, when will independence finish? Because so that shows that was a contradiction in sort of, just to show you that, that.
Sure. But I mean, interestingly, also in the point, on the front page of the Point newspaper, because of what we've been saying, it says, I read the headline in full, Amir Traoré urges Gambians to reflect true spirit of independence. So again, we're talking about this reflected, but having said that, what is the true spirit of independence? I'll come to you first, Mboj. What is the true spirit of independence? Because I know you have particular views about this.
Absolutely. For many people now, we call them Afro-pessimists, as it were. Things have failed. For me, that's a bit too precipitate. You really cannot say that. What's the yardstick to judge it by? You see, yes, this is what we've done so far. So the legitimate question for me is, what has happened? Really, not the cynicism and all the rest of it. Why? Because when I look at all the societies in the world, God, it took a long time to form a sense of nationhood. I said, let me compare to South America. They were also colonized. And they had their independence in the 19th century. Brazil, all of them, mainly all Argentina, of them. Yes. But 100 years later, how far have they come? So it's really a long journey. To say that we've botched it, I think it lacks insight. I think it's naive.
I wouldn't go as far as to say we botched it, but for me, there would be some tangible, measurable, material things that you can present. At independence, there were certain expectations.
Can I mention one? Can I mention one?
Yeah.
Around 1960, life expectancy was, 32 years.
Today,
63.
So
that's massive.
So that's what I'm saying. So there are certain things that we can use to measure it against, to say, was it worth it? of course, independence was worth it. But what have we registered? Some societies have progress. Others have reversed their progress by virtue of the way they were governed. So at independence, what was the understanding or the capacity of the leaders that assumed the realm of power? Did they emphasize on educating the masses?
Well, you took the words right, because for me, we can talk all we want about independence, this, independence, that. Unless we put education at the front and center, you educate your populace so that they can really grasp and take hold the reins of their country, we will never go forward, because we will forever be importing so-called experts and consultants from everywhere else rather than doing it ourselves. And that is one of the biggest failings,
and
not
that
just
is
here,
one
but in
of
other
the
countries.
achievements that Kwame Nkrumah registered in terms of enlightenment and education, because he had great passion for education, and his emphasis was to educate. At that period in Ghana, you can say anything, but they have spent a lot in terms of educating the Ghanaians at that time. If you look at the sub-region entirely, they used to go to Akimota and most of these universities in Ghana at that time, colleges sprouting all over in Ghana. So the emphasis was there, the trajectory was right. Yes, certain things happened afterwards, and then the consequences came because there were different forces that they were also fighting against. Because just immediately after independence, which for most Africans we fought for, the Europeans were not ready to let go.
Yes,
so that is why the fighting, if you look at the Mau Mau struggle in Kenya, it was brutal. If you look at the Algerian War of Independence, it was brutal. Guinea-Bissau War of Independence, it was brutal. And most of these African countries, even Guinea-Conakry. So the contradictions were already there, and the odds against them, the institutions that had already established the IMF, Bretton Woods, Paris Club, London Club, already structured the economic, framework.
For me, very early on, after independence, having grown up in Sierra Leone in the 60s, I was there on Independence Day and so on, a kind of cynicism set in very, very quickly, where making money became more important than getting an education, to the extent where we had this saying in Sierra Leone, in Creole, then say Abbas Ali, you say David Sid Nicol. David Sid Nicol was one of the most highly educated men, but Abbas Ali, who was uneducated, was the richest. And so it became, that is what people started to pursue, like, go after the richest, forget about getting an education. And you talk about Achimota, Frabe College was there before then, and that's where people went in Sierra Leone. And we valued education. First university in the sub-region, first secondary school in the sub-region. And yet that all started to dissipate during my school going days.
But you see, for me, the problem I have is really, what does really education mean? Who took over the colonial state? People who were more educated than the rest of us. And over the years, when I look at the governance, the PhD would behave the same way as your army captain.
I'm talking about engineers and architects and even plumbers. But I'm not talking about PhDs. We haven't even got decent plumbers even here in the Gambia. Somebody comes and does your plumbing.
The emphasis is not the individual, so to speak, or the elitism, but educating the masses to understand the journey of independence. That was what was missing in the link. The people were not enlightened. They didn't know what independence meant. For them, what they saw, it was just celebratory. The white people moved out from the State House. Black people came in, occupy it, flagging different flags, riding the same limousines. So those were the changes. But the essence of independence was lost in the whole narrative. And therefore we lost our way and derailed. And that is why we are having this conversation. Otherwise, we would have transcended this level.
For me, when I talk about education, I'm not talking about PhDs and that kind of BScs.
There was no script.
I'm talking about,
to tell me that we were derailed.
Yes,
what was the script?
Well,
one was merely discovering yourself in independence. You discover yourself in life.
Of course.
There was no script. So the idea that we derailed, that's arbitrary. Because there is no base.
There was a script.
There was no script. They were just words.
No, history did not start.
We were not the first people to become independent.
That's what I was going to allude to. History did not start then. the rise of consciousness was long going. We saw the French Revolution, where we learned a lot from in terms of their independence, and we saw the American independence. So there were many other, what was against us really were the institutions, the new colonial institutions that were existing and were not allowing the emerging African countries to assert themselves. And because of the low level of elites that were existing, the percentage was so insignificant, they couldn't have taken along the entire people, but they used them and stayed and perpetuated themselves. That was the mistake. What they could have done was build more schools, more institutions, educate the masses, enlighten them, break away from the colonial consciousness, which Nkrumah and some of these radical so-called leftists were doing at the time. But it failed because they did not take the people along.
Yeah, and
there was a worm in the apple.
Yeah, I mean, because for me it's an ongoing journey, and I think as
Exactly.
Boy said, 60 years is
Yes.
no time to really kind of start saying we have failed.
2 generations.
We haven't failed.
But
Two
the thing is,
generations.
it's not a case of have we failed or have we not failed, but have we learned the lessons
No.
to actually take us forward to the next 50, 60 years?
It's still better
And I'm
than
not
that.
even sure that we have.
You know,
You
We
know,
haven't
that's-
yet.
that's
That is
the-
why we're having
you know.
Niger. That is why we're having conversation about
Mali,
constitutions.
Burkina Faso, even
constitutions,
next story,
institutions.
fate of draft constitution to be
we should not
decided next year.
be having conversations about our constitutions.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
should
last-
not be having the military takeovers.
Yeah.
We should not have been having all these things. The institutions should have been functional
Yeah, go ahead.
to the extent that the people own their sovereignty. They determine and decide who governs
Sure.
within their own,
We're about to be joined by a lawyer, and just recently, we had a conference that we attended when they were talking about all the arcane laws that are still on our statute
Yes,
books that
indeed.
we inherited from the British. We should have thrown half or 90% of them out and brought in new laws, and we never did that.
Yeah, but this
You
is
know?
where the immediate post-colonial
So-
African leaders came. They
Talking about
used those
vagabonds
laws
and
to
lunatics
continue
in our laws.
with their convenience. They used those laws to self-perpetuate. They knew the laws were there. They could have expunged them
Right.
or amend them or change them. But out of their own convenience, they let those laws remain.
I think we'll have to end it there.
The devil is inside.
Indeed, I think we have to go for a commercial break, and then when we return, we'll delve into the next segment. Well, Mr. Carr, thank you for your interjections. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
It's a
and we'll
pleasure,
take a
as
commercial
always.
break, and when we come back.
Kiu money aning orange money ye bulo di nyola pour ka kori kio sone yandi ka bonang Gambia banko kang kata Senegal banko kang aning Kiu money wallet eka mune batu imuna fan Kiu money account wala sign pour kadati ka kodoki eterimal anila dimbayal kana aning orange money Senegal ni lafta ku Senegal sotola je Kiu money customer care commandi 133 Kiu money sunyu kalpe nying sartol le bala Kiu Money ak Orange Money ñoo lëkkaloo pour yombalal leen yónnee xaalis bàyyi ko Gambia dem ba Sénégal ak Kiu Money wallet looy toog di xaar dawal léegi nga ubbi Kiu Money account pour nga mun a door di yónnee xaalis sa xariteeg sa mbokk yi jaarale ko Orange Money Sénégal léegi pour am si lu leer mun nga call Kiu Money customer care si 133 Kiu Money suñu kalpe lii dafa ànd ak sarta yuñ tëral.
Mitoma. First time cross, really threatening, and it's dropped for Minte, rifled in! Out.
Did you know you can buy cash power using Q Money Wallet absolutely free up to 30,000 C's? Use our app or dial 323 hash and select Q Power. Choose Register Meter. Enter your meter number. Dial *323 hash and follow these simple steps. Number 1, select option 3 for Q Power. Number 2, choose option 1 to buy any amount of Q Power.
Have one back.
Enjoy free QCell airtime every time you cash in to purchase Q Power. any inquiries, call 133. Q Money, Sunyu Kalbe.
Mitoma. First time cross, really threatening, and it's dropped for Minte. Rifled in! Out.
Hidandi da wawi sodu de cash power e Q Money wallet maong te ayobata hai hunde ida wawi sode ko yeha guluji chapan $30. Kawatano baby, wadu dial star 323 has joka sartajiding subada option 3 fi Q power. Ontumasi subada register meter number sa gaini natina number meter maong. Wadu dial star 323 has joka sartajiding subada option 3 fi Q power. Ontumasi subada ko jelu falda sodude. Awawa hebude ko bura Andre free QCell air.
Hello and welcome back. If you just wandered from another channel, this is QTV and QTV is this morning. Now, earlier on the program, I had mentioned that we should have had a debate around independence. It seems that we ended up having it in here. So even if the government or nobody else organized one, we organize our own. And here in the studio, we have our guest, Almami Tal, who will be delving into conservation matters. But before that, we hope to go live, and this is something I really hate doing. We can land a man on the moon, but TV stations still struggle to link up with people on the telephone all over the world, not just here. But I hope we have on the line Kex Sane. Kex, are you there? Can you hear me? Hello, Kex, can you hear me? You see, viewers, what I was talking about? When we do get through to Kex, we're hoping he's going to give us an update on what is happening in the courts, particular case regarding the shooting to death of 2 PIU officers and the wounding of another. Ansi Jao is the one who survived. 2 of her colleagues were killed in this incident. And the accused has been appearing in court. He's been given evidence, and some interesting evidence it has been so far. So I won't spoil it for you because I hope Kex will be on the line and he'll be able to tell me this. And Kex, I will try once again. Are you there? Can you hear me? Okay, we're still trying. So while we're trying to get Kex, I'll give a quick update. The man charged is Usainu Bojang. He's the man accused of killing the 2 PIU officers. And one of my colleagues was surprised that this did not happen last year. In fact, it was 12th of September 2023 that the incident happened. This chap was pursued and he was arrested. And he's been giving evidence. And as I said, I don't want to spoil it for you. But I remember at the time of his arrest, the police came and they were sort of brandishing the alleged weapon and so on, and everybody was thinking, hang on, they're not even wearing gloves. And so there were all these sort of questions that were raised. But in his testimony and under cross-examination, he's actually made the case very, very interesting. It was, tragic case, but as a court case, and we can see images of the accused, Usainu Bojang. So I gather we may now have Kex back on the line, and Kex, I hope the technology is cooperating with us. Kex, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Kex, I've given a kind of brief summary about Usainu Bojang, the fact that he was charged with shooting to death of these 2 police officers. The case is ongoing, and I don't know if people have been following it, but I wonder if you could give our viewers an update on the latest.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, as we all of us are aware, Usainu Bojang and his sister were actually charged for murder, and Usainu was charged for murder, whilst the sister was actually charged for what we call, accomplice. She was at least one who actually escorted Usainu after the facts were established by trying to escape him from the source of the Gambia to Senegal. So she is also charged. alongside his brother for the murder trial against Hussein Uboja. And since the case has started at the state, the state prosecutors has called 13 witnesses that testify before the court, and they all give their evidence into what their accounts of what actually transpired on that very day, and others give testimony of how Hussein was arrested in Senegal and this interaction with the police officers in the Gambia. So these were the things that the state actually brought their witness, and they have testified to that effect. From there, they closed their case, and it is now the turn of Hussein to open his defense and tell the courts why he denied the allegations and why he should be acquitted and discharged by the court. So he's given his testimony, and so far he have gone too far for his own testimony, because he's the first witness to testify before the court. Then he will call other witnesses that will help him in terms of proving that he didn't actually did the crime that he's alleged of. So far that's where we are. Hussein will give his testimony of his account on the very day this incident happens, where it met him that he was in his workplace, which is in Brufut. He give testimony of his mobile conversations that will actually give or support his evidence that he was not closer to the scene at the very day when this incident was happened, but while he was on a phone talking to the white lady, that's almost the whole night. And from there, his friend that he stayed with, he gave testimony that he was actually with his friends over that night. And he gave a testimony to that effect that, his friends can confirm that he was with them in the whole night. So all his evidence is in denial of his connection with this whole incident, but he went further to say that, his dissension with the police, he encountered what we call, he was forcefully, they didn't obtain his cautionary and voluntary statement. It is voluntarily that he should give based on his consent, but he was forced, beaten, and these were things that he actually told the court. He went up and extended to even show his back, how he was beaten, and there are some bruises and marks there, but the court told him that since the incident happened, there was no doctor that actually confirmed that, and this is an old wound now. We cannot determine whether this was when you were arrested or it was an old wound that you have sustained. So since we didn't have an expert, the court will not waste its time to actually go into this. But also in terms of his voluntariness of his statement, Hussein argued that his statements were not taken voluntarily, and there was what we call boadi, that is a trial in a trial to establish the fact whether his statements were taken voluntarily. But at the end of the boadi, the court maintained that his statements were actually taken voluntarily, and now they are in the main suit where Hussein is now giving his testimony in regards to actually why the court should not found him for the alleged crime that he have committed.
Now,
so
Kex,
in that, yes.
Yeah, I gather on the first day of his testimony, he also mentioned, he claimed in court that 7 people were brought to the police station to identify him, and none of them identified him. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. He said, there are 7 people that were actually paraded at Sukuta police station. So he was taken by senior police officers for him to appear before those people to identify. But upon their arrival there, when those 7 people were paraded and he was paraded before those people, all of them testified or told the officers that that was not the guy who they saw on the very day who was shooting the police officers. That guy is a short guy, and the description that they give is totally different from his description, his physical appearance. So that was the time one of the officers, according to him, he said is Jawara Paliu Jawara, who then told them that it was Commissioner So who is misleading them. But he will be fine. They will release him upon their arrival at the anti-crime. He went further to establish that he was actually given a coffee that contained some substance, because after drinking that coffee, he went off sleep and he didn't realize himself. He went further to accuse the police that he was forcefully, they used his fingerprint forcefully to stamp it on various papers without his consent. All these things were allegations that he made during his testimony.
And he also made, Kex, an allegation regarding his phone. Can you just tell us what that allegation was regarding his phone, his mobile phone?
Yes, he said one detective, Ibuso, confronted him with his phone by then, because when he was arrested, his phones were seized from him. Then one fateful night, Ibuke So invited him to his office and told him to unlock his phone.
Yeah.
So he gave him his pattern and also the password, and when the phone was unlocked, Then it will catch the phone for some time and restarted the entire phone factory, restarted it and hand over the phone to him without no password. Then when he saw that one, he told him that, well, why do you do this? Then that was the time the man left with his phone. So this is what actually he gave a testimony to that effect. Now that's what is before the court. The court wanted to now access the phone, but the Google account that Usainu had and the email address were in a diary, which he claimed that the police actually took that diary when they were searching his house. But the court has made an order for the diary to be present before the court so that they will actually use it. But when they attempt to do it, that was yesterday, the email and the password actually is indicating that it's not found in the phone. So that means that it's not going. So now they have order for a technician, mobile technician, to come before the court so that they can actually log in whether they will be able to log into the phone to establish some of the claims that Usainu said were in the phone, like his phone conversation, his WhatsApp conversation. So whether they will retrieve the conversations 2 years back. So this is what we are trying to the court is trying to establish, and until they can access the phone, that will be something that we cannot actually confirm yet. But once they access the phone, we will now establish whether those communications that he alleged have been, he had a conversation with those people, is something that actually is true or not.
Sure, Kex. Now, am I right in saying that he is now given evidence for 2 days and he has not yet been cross-examined? Is that correct?
Yeah, no, this is his start day since he started. He's giving his this is the fourth one since he started his testimony. He was given a marathon actually testimony, and yet still it's not concluded yet. We don't know whether we will have the fifth sitting on his testimony, but so far, this is the fourth time he has been given testimony. Okay, thanks for that, Kex, and thanks for joining us, and we hope you'll keep us updated. And also, we know that this is a case that the viewers are very much interested in. But Kex, thanks for that very comprehensive update. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. So, viewers, there you heard. We've heard the details of the case, and I thought it was the second day. It turns out it's the fourth day of his testimony, and he has yet to be cross-examined. We can't delve into that too much because we've got other matters to discuss, but this is a case that many people are interested in. And once again, I welcome Almami Tal, our guest. Almami, we're not here to talk about court matters. We're not even here to talk about the Diamond Jubilee. We have you're a man of many hats, and one of those hats is you are very much a conservationist. So we have you, it says Green Gambia. So please tell us, Kairaba Conservation, what's that all about and how did it come about?
Thank you very much, Ade, and best wishes for the Diamond Jubilee of the Gambia.
Indeed.
To my brother, Mr. Mboch. The Kairaba Conservation and Leadership Organization was established in 2022. Right. The idea was founded really on Sadauda's own legacy, because the Banjul Declaration, which was made to school children in 1977, was a very significant marker for some of us born just after independence or around independence, because in primary schools, in high schools, the declaration was having a place of pride.
You're right, yes.
And the statement...
Does it still have it?
No, it's no longer in schools.
Yeah,
yes.
But sorry to interrupt, but I've been to several schools. I've never seen it.
Yes, yes.
Sorry,
and we one of the reasons for our existence is to re-engender that sense of stewardship in making Gambia a green nation. The statement starts with a reflection, that it is sobering a reflection that in a very short period of our history as a nation, much of the forest cover and the wildlife had disappeared. Therefore, it is our responsibility, every one of us, that's what Sadauda said in the declaration, to conserve our environment. And it was accompanied by this his philosophy of Tesitu. And, nationwide, every summer particularly, trees were planted,
Right.
even in the capital city.
You remember doing that?
Yes,
I
yes.
think we discussed it.
Yeah,
and
of
I
course.
said to you, Independence Drive, remember,
Yes,
you
yes.
can walk from one end to another, walking in the shade.
Right,
Yes.
right, right.
Fantastic.
Yes. Very beautiful, magnificent trees. Of course, we were very young then, you know, and we really did not connect. But in our own adulthood and having our own children, not having been exposed to that kind of visionary interaction with nature, we felt it is necessary to bring that back. And last year being the centenary of his birth, we thought it's a fitting time to try and reach out to Gambians, not only of that generation, but across the board. We have met ministers of state, we have met His Lordship the Chief Justice to present him the declaration. And I have to say also in 2017, since we are talking about milestones and histories, His Excellency President Barrow, at his first meeting with the National Assembly, that was the 40th anniversary of the Banjul Declaration. So he rededicated it to the nation and readapted it. In fact, some trees were planted in front of Parliament, but there was no protection, so the animals had a feast. I think since then they have been trying to do some work. But in during his centenary, we planted some coconut trees inside Parliament around the mausoleum of Sadauda. So the idea is to reignite that imaginative approach to development of self-reliance and get especially the students interested and curious about our relationship with the natural world, to get them to plant trees and to acquire those trees from them, and then plant them in our neighborhoods and plant them in the few green spaces that we have. So that essentially is the raison d'etre for establishing the Kairaba Conservation and Leadership.
So Mr. Goj, you said you remember getting involved. I think you wanted to ask a question, but also what was your experience of that? Because you kind of touched on it briefly.
That's exactly it. The curious thing about Tessito, as a grown-up, how I reflect back, it's that it's about self-reliance, but again, it was green. Before the whole world, before it became fashionable. That's it. So we were consciously aware. This is the key. It was part of the ecosystem. Planting trees, conserving, even if you did not quite understand the concept, yet that was part of the culture. That was our culture. It was quite extraordinary.
And it also went towards the design of our institutions. We have a National Trading Corporation. We had a Gambia Commercial and Development Bank, Agricultural Development Bank. We had cotton ginneries. We had a lot of institutions that were directed towards self-sufficiency and self-reliance. And, you know, if you look at the first Jubilee, that's the Silver Jubilee, we had come out of an ERP. And, you know, Sadauda's leadership, that is what some of us are so inspired about. We were living within our means. When it was necessary to cut government, it was cut to size. And the Silver Jubilee, we had the second President Bush as one of the guests, and Princess Royal, Princess Anne, as another guest. I remember all those years ago when I graduated and qualified as a lawyer, I went to the Attorney General's library and I found reports there of the Gambia's taking off, becoming an anti-report nation, the Singaporeization. All of these ideas sprang out of the Tessito and the self-reliance that Sadauda talked about. Of course, at the back of all of this is to be able to be food self-sufficient, to be, what is it called, economically empowered. Even the businesses, you have the National partnership enterprise
Right.
that was focused on fisheries.
Okay.
You know, Fisco Konate.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have
Yeah.
Bainjai and so on. So the
Absolutely,
economy, the commanding heights of our economy in those years were controlled by Gambians.
Right. Right.
You know, the president's own father-in-law and the current president, the person who brought him on, Musa Njai.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
You know, all of these businesses, whether they are in the food business, whether they are in the construction business, were Gambian owned
Right.
and driven by Gambian entrepreneurs. You know, even the cottage industries in terms of food, in terms of this tie and dye, people like Musukeba Drame. So as a nation, we had a vision, we had a direction that was elucidated by our first president. All of it talking about conserving what is good and what is yours.
Yes.
Of course, not everything was hunky-dory.
No. Quite.
And I think as the years of Tacito as well as the declaration gather up, momentum was slipping.
Right. Right.
And you have institutional atrophying and all of those things. Now, of course, with hindsight, because we have traveled, we have gone, our education has gone advanced.
Yes.
We have lived in places as diverse as India and the United Kingdom.
Sure.
You realize the beauty of the vision, but the lackluster
Yes, quite.
implementation
of it, which is a major
time.
failing. So how do we get back to that? That's the big question that
No,
everybody
it's not so
listening
much as getting back.
Yeah, you know.
We have a heritage, and it's for us to valorize it.
Yeah.
For me, I think that's what I always try to explain. It's always about innovation. It's about the future.
Sure.
Because you cannot go back to the past.
Go on.
There is no potential in the past.
Go on.
But we have to learn lessons when we design our institutions. What are we trying to say to each other?
Sure.
Are we living within our own means? Are we sufficiently driven by our imagination to create not only value, but to include everybody, including the environment? Because sometimes it suffers benign neglect because we don't factor it in.
And that's been my biggest criticism since I came to the Gambia. We've covered 100 things where people have said they've validated this policy and this strategy. But then when you scratch beneath the surface, the sustainability has not been factored into it. And you know that after the photo opportunities, 2 or 3 years down the line, you'll go and look at that thing and it'll be dead because they have not considered the wider context of how can this thing sustain itself 15, 20, 30 years from now. And that's been a failing.
Indeed.
That's it. And for me, this question though, I wonder, how can I put it? How fertile is the soil, as it were, so that we can regrow, if you like, this 32.
Yeah, I guess that's
when you
kind
look
of, when
around,
I said go back, that's
it.
kind of what I meant.
When I look around, it's
you know,
just very, how do you see it?
how do we summon up that?
No, we can because of our DNA. We have learned certain lessons and they are unchangeable. That plurality is the strength of this country. We are from very diverse people, ethnically, religious-wise. We have that diversity as a fountain that can help us nourish the soil, as he puts it. We need to commit really to the philosophy of Tacito. We must learn to live within our means. But our education plays a significant role in this. And the education is not only in the classroom.
Which is kind of what I was getting at
yes.
When we discussed this earlier.
So I think it's very inspiring for some of us to see the current Prime Minister of Senegal to come to us and talk about public policy exclusively in Wolof, a language that the vast majority of Gambians understand, the vast majority of Senegalese understand. It's not the only language in Senegal or in the Gambia, but it's a level of sophistication that has been attained, so that our education must really take that now into account. Should we not be teaching our languages?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I always find this very funny when I hear people say, oh, you should say it in the vernacular. You should say it in the local language. These are our languages.
It's our language, yeah.
And if you want to know the strength of language, look at a country like Singapore, which is, Gambia is twice bigger than Singapore, size.
Gained our independence at the same time.
Same time.
Our flags were raised next to each other on the same day at the UN, September 1965.
Yes. And they had made it a policy to take their diversity. They have a Malay tradition, they have a Chinese tradition, they have an Indian Tamil tradition. And their schools teach all these three languages in addition to English. By consensus, they have decided to make English the official language of government and business. And that has also opened them to the world. So I think learning or teaching our languages would empower people more, especially those who want to go into public life. And within the languages contain some of the secrets, some of the knowledge that we need to live a dignified life going forward. I put a lot of my friends or people I have interacted with to this test. The color green, Ade. I know my brother does not know the color green in Wolof.
Werta.
Werta, that is French. That is French. No, it's a fundamental question. I have asked the trade minister. I have asked Professor Jibril Fall.
We'll get Kokabat to go out on the streets and ask this question. Yes, guys.
I have asked Professor Jibril Fall. He told me, Amami, I don't know.
Oh, look at that.
I asked the Honorable Minister of Trade.
Yes, guys.
Mr. Juve.
Did you ask the Environment Minister yet? Maybe not yet.
No, I haven't had the opportunity. But I have asked a few people.
But that's a brilliant example.
Yeah. So it speaks to the fact that if you ask a wall of speaker the color yellow, he tells you of the fruit.
Right.
And it's the same in Mandinka.
Right.
Of course, in Mandinka, green means a new leaf or fresh leaf.
Right.
Jambakero.
Right.
So if you look at all our languages that are spoken here, I think my relatives, the Fula, also, they have all these colors. But the bird life, the fauna, the general animal life,
they're all reflected in the names
in
of
our
those
languages.
Right.
But the thing is, there are some stories, folk tales and stories embedded in the lives of the hyenas and the hares that we've been told when we were young. When we go for these circumcision rites, we have all these things, in the form of stories, and they are containing knowledge of our civilization, of our way of being in the world. So I think if we can, in this Diamond Jubilee, reflect on the purposes of the education that we are giving to our children and grandchildren, I think we will go some way in reclaiming a lot in terms of our heritage, and that would give us enough ballast to build a new Jerusalem here.
I think that's a brilliant. I know Mr. Borges is itching to come in there because you mentioned it. But that's another
occasion.
But Almami, honestly, I want to say, my brother, thank you for coming. We go back a long way, just in case viewers are wondering why I'm referring to him as my brother. We go back, way back, a long time. It's a pleasure having you here. And of course, we hope one day Banjul Declaration will once again be in our schools, in our places, and we live by it.
Definitely. We are, even this afternoon, we are presenting one to the Charles Jau Academy.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we have started. We are talking to Gambia High School, Marina, and all the schools that some of us went to,
Sure.
and you know we have already presented to Sibek. My sons are
In fact, they're coming here today, 70 of them coming to visit us. But Almami, once again, thank you.
Thank you.
And viewers, at this point, we'll take a break. And just to say, once again, a big, big thank you. And we've learned something. And some of you might now be asking your elder relatives, the color green in Wolof, what is it?
By the way, what is it?
I don't know.
Brilliant. After this break, we'll be back with the final segment. Join us after this break.
Mitoma. First time cross, really threatening, and it's dropped for Minte. Rifled in! Out.
Hidandi da wawi sodude cash power e Q money wallet maong te ayobata hai hunde ida wawi sode ko yehi ha guluji chapan $30. Kawatano baby, wadu dial star 323 has joka sartaji ding suboda option 3 fi Q power. Ontumasi suboda register meter number sa gaini natina number meter maong.
Have you ever woken up to the soft reflection of the sunrise on the water, feeling its warmth on your skin? The waves welcome the thrill of jet skis while laughter and life come all around. From the vibrant scenes of the locals preparing fresh, natural juices to the explosion of colors in art, design, culture, and heritage. Every moment in the Gambia is alive with creativity and culture. At International Trade Center, ITC, we believe in the power of creativity to drive change and transform lives. That's why, after the success of the European Union-funded Youth Empowerment Project, ITC is launching a new initiative with funding from the European Union focused on strengthening the Gambia's tourism and creative industries. This initiative focuses on supporting strategies and regulations, strengthening institutions, investing in responsible tourism products, enhancing marketing and branding, strengthening MSMEs, competitiveness, facilitating market linkages, and improving skills, all within the tourism and creative industries. This project will unlock opportunities.
Welcome back. You're watching This Morning here on QTV, and I'm smiling because we had a very interesting conversation with Lavin Fanning Tal there, the color green in Wolof. What is it? We'll be asking everybody today, and we'll get to it. You know, but our next segment is a completely different one, in fact, from green matters to enforcement of tobacco control regulations. And we have Lamin Jai, Program Officer, Non-Communicable Diseases. Lamin, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And so, Lamin, I wonder if you can tell us what is the latest. It's all about enforcement. And by the way, in the middle of us is a smoker, by the way. So I'll out him already. But so what's this enforcement been all about? Because, you know, just before you came on, we were talking about we're very good at passing laws, validating things, but we're not so good at implementing them. And I suspect that's the same with Tobacco Control Act of 2016.
Thank you very much. I think comprehensively, I think before we talked about enforcement, look at the needs for the enforcement in the first place. Because tobacco being a killer, as it is labeled globally, there is a need for us actually to look at mechanisms to put in place to make sure that we cope this situation.
Sure.
And if you look at the global, especially WHO fact sheets, indicates that yearly 8 million people die of direct tobacco use.
Sure.
And 1.3 for second-hand smoking. And there is a need, because if you look at it globally, these are the most public health threats currently that is causing mortality.
In England, it's a big thing. I
Exactly.
mean, the number of people
so that's
who,
why the WHO,
present in hospitals.
FCTC came into play to make sure that we look for ways to make sure that we reduce this mortality that are related to tobacco use, either direct or indirect use. So that part of the component is to bring in laws in place to make sure that that controls the use of tobacco within the country.
Sure.
And that's where the enforcement comes into play.
Well,
but of course, we are on sensitization to make sure that people understand the need for these laws that are in the country to make sure that they comply easily.
So yeah, so we're talking about 2016 Act, which probably kicked in 2017.
Sure.
So we're talking about 8 years since then.
Sure.
What has been the success or otherwise of enforcement of that act?
Greatly, we have actually registered a lot of success in the Tobacco Control Act 2016.
Okay.
Because if you look at it, let's say tobacco promotion, advertisement, and sponsorship within the country, rarely will you step out of this zone and then see anywhere that tobacco has been displayed for public sale, or been advertised in any other form. So, but if you reflect back, sometime back, let's say 6 years back, you would have seen even nylon bags that are labeled with cigarette, either Piccadilly, umbrellas, Piccadilly, or Marlboro sort of. Those are all in existence then. But now, no more, because of the existence of this law to make sure that advertisement on tobacco is prohibited.
So what most people will be asking, yes, that those overt displays have gone, but what about the use of it, of tobacco? Have we seen a corresponding drop in the number of people who are smoking, the number of young people who are taking up the habit? What has been the success in that regard?
Sure. A lot of advocacy has been done basically from 18 years and above and below 18 also, that is school-going kids. And the latest statistics that we got in 2010, that was the WHO STEP survey, has indicates alarming figures.
Did you say 2010?
2010, that was some time back.
That's 15
and then we've done another survey, actually, that's 2023, which is set to be finalized in this 2024. And the results are quite impressive, actually. Results are quite impressive with regards to the statistics that we have been seeing, both underage smoking and then above 18 also. The statistics are actually dropping. They are dropping.
So so we're talking about enforcement this time. What has been the form rather? How has this current enforcement that we're talking about, that we're reflecting on, how is that being carried out?
Exactly. With regards to the enforcement, it's done quarterly. With the task force. It's done quarterly, but regionally normally it's a routine activity based on the enforcement team that are set within the regions. So at the central level, it's quarterly. So the targets are basically on the TDAs, that is storage development areas, because that's where a lot of these smoking take place.
So what is it they're looking for, these people who go out to enforce, as the enforcers? What are the enforcers looking for?
Exactly. Basically, we are looking at a few components. That is public smoking, which is prohibited within our act. At the same time, display of tobacco to entice people to buy. Promotion.
So these are the key areas that we are looking at. Let's take, we'll go through the others. Public smoking. Is Mr. Mboj not allowed to walk down the street having a puff?
so it's interesting when you say public smoking. Our law define public as two people. Wherever two meet is considered public.
Okay.
So wherever you have two people, you cannot smoke.
You can't smoke.
It's considered public.
So just I wanted people to get the sense of it. So it's so
explicit in that format.
So when I'm walking down the road, I can't take a puff because at any point somebody
might
close to me, might walk past.
Exactly.
So no, we want to be more specific.
Sure. So if you look at it, they located something that's you as a smoker, you are at liberty to smoke, but we as non-smokers equally is not so far a consequence of your smoke.
We have to inhale.
So in regards, the law has to bring in a mechanism to bridge the gap between the two. So what the locators is for 100 meters away from the next individual. Your closest individual should be 100 meters away from you before you can smoke. So, but now if you look into the street, if you walk into the street, when will you have that that gap to enable you to smoke?
100 meters between you and the next person.
It's rather impossible.
So
actually, within our environment here, unless if you move away from the people and then go to the bus, then smoke and then free come back. So otherwise, you cannot smoke anywhere within the confinement of
But isn't there, I wonder, a crucial difference between enclosed spaces
That's one of the
and
reasons.
open
and open
spaces?
That, I was going to
Aren't
ask.
there-
whether-
what do you think?
Because when you talked about the TDA, I assumed they probably
So
meant
open place.
in the restaurants and
Exactly.
so on. It's very much kind of public spaces.
So,
but is there a distinction between
no, actually,
enclosed and non? Okay.
the law did not distinguish between the two.
Right. Okay.
Anywhere that you have two people
Yes.
is considered public.
Okay.
Whether it's an open or enclosure.
Okay.
But in an open place, it's two ways. But in enclosure, you're exposing people, and then there's a possibility of secondhand smoking again.
Sure.
Because in a confinement like this, smoke condenses.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So
I
even
mean,
when we exited, people will come in.
The law in Britain, as far as I can remember, is about enclosed spaces.
Yes. I mean,
Essentially.
you can walk down the street and
Because
smoke.
it's bound to be different.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You
because
know,
of it.
this lack of distinction.
And
I
one
mean,
of the reasons why they brought this kind of enclosed spaces
Yes.
thing it started first on public transport.
Sure,
Exactly, yes.
You weren't allowed to smoke downstairs on a double-decker bus.
Mhm.
But when you walked upstairs, you would actually literally see the smoke hanging
Exactly.
there, you know, and it was horrendous. I mean, I remember once I came off a bus in the days when they still, and I'd gone to visit my mother, and she said, "When did you start smoking?" And I said, "Actually, I didn't. But the bus I took, I had to sit upstairs the whole journey, and I reeked of tobacco smoke. And I remembered after that, if a bus came along and there was only upstairs, I wouldn't get on it because I hated the smell of it, and I always have done. And then eventually they banned it, and as Mr. Boyd rightly says, they then brought in this kind of enclosed spaces,
Exactly.
But
sort
open
of
spaces
distinction.
you can.
Yeah.
So that's why if you look at our own,
Can.
within the sub-region, African region, I think we have the best laws with regards to smoke-related issues
Okay.
in terms of tobacco use.
In terms of what's on the
Exactly.
statute books,
What enshrined within our
probably
laws.
not about compliance.
Best. Why do you call it the best?
Because it doesn't create any environment where you can smoke.
Where you can smoke. Yeah, right. Other
Then
than
why don't you just ban smoking?
So
Smoke
it's
by
just like
yourself in your home.
any other
Yeah,
commodity.
smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
beyond the scope because it's just like any other commodity. It's a legal commodity, so you just cannot ban it like
so
that.
Is it
what-
realistic though? What
but-
are you
and
going to
and
achieve?
for
Nobody
those
cares
who,
about that.
For those who flout it, what are the penalties? What are the penalties? And are they stiff enough? Because you say they're the best. In order for them to be the best, they have to be effective. No, I'm not being, churlish or anything.
So actually, in that regard, we actually collaborate with GRA to make sure that we are using their legal infrastructure to make sure that we prosecute people that actually aren't complying with the tobacco-related laws.
And are there fines, and have people been fined?
Currently, when we start enforcement, we've not actually fined someone.
On this current round? Okay.
Before, it was spot finding. But later on, that has been stopped.
Right.
And then now we actually want to look at things in another way around to make sure that we use the GRA in collaboration because they're also a stakeholder with regards to tobacco in the country.
So something like this, there must be targets both kind of nationally and regionally. What sort of targets? And as you said, in the regions, because our reporters in the regions tell us that these teams, they go around routinely to the markets and they seize products that are sort of incorrectly displayed and so on. But what are the targets and what is hoped to achieve, to be achieved at the end of?
So within the coast, West Coast here, the targets are the tourism sectors, because that's where many people will want to go and rest and then with your family and others.
Sure.
So we want to make sure that place is 100% smoke-free. So in the provinces also, the garages, the markets, and the shops are the targets to make sure that there is no smoke in the garages, the markets,
so
and then
those,
tobacco display to entice people around the shops also are something that's. But actually, I think there's progress because just a few weeks back we were on a caravan tour, nationwide caravan tour, and rarely will you go to the province and see people smoking freely in the in the street like that.
Okay.
Quite different from what is actually in the Combos here. I was surprised actually. The compliance level over there is higher than the West Coast here, obviously. Even within the garages.
Really, this is the urban.
Exactly.
And so do you take this message to schools and to the universities? Because any idea like this is a case of catch them young. Get them to learn good habits while they're young. So what's the kind of interaction and the outreach in terms of linking up with the likes of MOPSI and even Mohurst?
Exactly. We've not actually extended our tentacles in that area with regards to collaboration with education, but at minor scope, we've been visiting schools to make sure we have school health educational programs in the different areas, and even regionally, the public health officers that are within the other regions also incorporated within their school health programs to make sure that they talk to the youths about the effects of tobacco and the harms of tobacco use. So these are ongoing things, but we actually look into it to make sure if you can have a curriculum that actually speaks about smoking kind of embedded within the Ministry of Education. That would help a lot to make sure that people are educated and targeted at the young stage.
So take us on a journey. You're part of an enforcement team. You're going out and you're looking for certain things, and you see something that's an infringement. What happens there and then?
Currently, what we do in that, we actually sensitize the individual, even though they know it, but we still talk to them about the consequences and they're infringing into the law, and then we seize those tobacco products that are actually displayed in the public, especially with tobacco scissors that are actually mostly used within the West Coast. So we actually confiscate all those products to make sure that they are taken out, and then we talk to the premises owner to make sure that he understands that his premises is his responsibility to make sure that no one smokes within your own premises.
I was going to come to that because even in England, in restaurants, you have smoking sections.
Exactly,
where people, you're telling, and I'm sure, I won't name the place, but I'm sure I went to one place here where it happened that the person I was with is a smoker. And we were put in one section, and she smoked there.
Unfortunate.
So I'm just wondering what the rules are. So within a restaurant, there's not even a smoking area and a no smoke. It's a no-go area, full stop.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
So even within the restaurant, actually, there's no place within the restaurant where you can say maybe here's a smoking zone. Where somebody can just go and smoke. No.
Okay. Right.
So even part of our surveillance to know that this restaurant actually there's a public smoking conducted here, you look for ashtrays.
Yeah, of course,
so
exactly.
Automatically, once you see an ashtray, you know that here is a smoking zone. So those are evidence to show that this place there is smoking, ongoing smoking, public smoking. So that's why I say our law is next to perfect with regards to the content. But as you said, implementation we are always challenged because a lot of factors hinder
I think what he means to say is his law. That law is so extremist. You are interfering with certain things, really.
But,
so calling it the best, I'm not so sure about that.
But I think
those hard is the best.
I think those who support the rule will say that you should interfere if you're protecting those who are not indulging in the practice. And I guess that's where it comes in. What is for the kind of the public good rather than an individual's.
Exactly.
But again, one has to balance so many different factors. That's why in a good number of liberal societies you wouldn't see something as strict as that. So it just depends on one's politics. In the end, it depends on your politics.
I wonder if the people in England are watching and they might want to adopt what the Gambia has already.
It's difficult to have such a law in those areas. But actually, because if you look at Gambia, why we need to have strict laws with regards to smoking. Our latest reports on NCD, especially mortality, the Gambia recorded 34% of our deaths are NCDs.
We're quite non-communicable diseases.
And tobacco stand out in all these conditions that are non-communicable diseases. You talk about diabetics, hypertension, stroke, heart diseases, lung, all these cancers. Tobacco is a key risk factor to all of this. So that's why it's actually, I will not call it radical, but something radical measures need to be taken to make sure that we cut that.
Are we done?
I think that's a brilliant point.
Because we've been hearing the kind of argument for a long time, but libertarians have a counter argument to that.
Exactly.
The nanny state. Don't nanny me, please.
So Lamin Njai, Program Officer, Non-Communicable Diseases, thank you for joining us today. And Mr. Bush can now go and have his puff after the end of the program. And to you, our viewers, thank you for watching. I don't think we have and I must apologize because I don't think we have, in fact I know we don't have a segment because somebody told me they really liked the Diamond Jubilee stuff that we've been doing here in the Gambia. But watch tonight's news and we hope to bring you the latest on that. So to the rest of you, thank you for watching. Until we come your way again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you.